Hi guys, Camille here from Mind, Body, and Soul, and we are going to talk about a concept that I have thought about for a very long time, and that is the concept of bridging the gap between what seems like two very different worlds. So I'm not sure what your experience with this has been, but with mine, in reading all of these different, personal growth books and self-help and personal discovery, there seemed to be two buckets in which most books fell. They either were very tactical, tangible, think power of habit, extreme ownership, atomic habits, very orderly, and there are rules and there's not a whole lot of woo-woo. That is one bucket. The other bucket is the Dr. Wayne Dyers, the Esther Hicks, the Jim Rohn, the thinkers of the world, the people who live a little bit more connected to their source, their energy. They maybe reference God a lot more, and living on purpose and intention, affirmations, that sort of bucket. I, being a 19-year-old at the time when I wrote these notes, found myself very much in the middle of a bridge between two sides of the world, and I couldn't figure out how to connect them. And here is the ways that I found worked for me to be able to connect both of these lands. I find value in both of them because I love to spend my life with my head in the clouds and living on an intention and trusting that all-knowing source, but I also have a real job and I have daily activities that I have to do, and I live in, my feet are on the ground. They're working in reality. So these are some of the ways that I kind of meet in the middle and to kind of get the best of both worlds and bridge the gap between the two. So the first one is something tangible that you can do that fulfills you from the inside. So I call it Gratitude Sunday. And basically this concept started when I was toting around this stack of thank you cards from house to house to house when I was moving throughout college. And I was like, okay, I'm sick of carrying these around. I'm going to figure out something to do with them. And I decided to write thank you letters to different people in my life, just simply thanking them for being in my life, write a special memory, something that happened during that time. Sometimes I wrote these letters and they just sat on my desk, and sometimes I wrote them and hand-delivered them to people. And, it was always very well received. Of course, who doesn't like to hear a letter about how awesome they are to someone else? But what I found was it was so twofold on the energy that I got back from it. Not only did it feel really good to feel really grateful for the people that do make a difference in my life, because there are so many people that you encounter on a daily basis and throughout your life that really leave a lasting impact on your thoughts and who you are. So I wanted to give grace to them and thank them for just, walking across my life's path. So that was a really good experience for me just in that moment, just writing those letters. And then you get to pass it off to someone and you get to see their reaction. You get to see their gratitude come over their face. Or like what my sister-in-law did, she saved hers for a rainy day when she wasn't feeling so great and she knew she would open that letter and it would do a lot to turn her around. So that was something I used to do. I'm definitely going to get back into it now that I'm thinking about it. You just stop doing certain habits that really made a big difference, but it's always fine. Just pick it up whenever you think about it. So if you have any thank you cards laying around the house, I would highly recommend doing a Gratitude Sunday and just writing one thank you card just to one person every week. It doesn't take more than 5 minutes, but I find that activity to fill out my cup a whole lot. The second one is called the consistency bias. So this is back over to the right side of the land where we know how our human brain works and we want to work with it rather than against it. Well, there's really fascinating 25 cognitive biases. If you go to that website, it'll list out the 25 cognitive biases on basically why humans are drawn to certain things from a biological standpoint, and why it's in our survival mechanism to think that way. But one of them is the consistency bias. So the idea that you hear something over and over and over and over and over and over again, it's eventually going to stick. And you're going to be more likely to identify with that if you continue to hear it over and over again. Well, marketing does this a lot by, replaying you commercials multiple times again. Over time, you're going to be more likely to favor it. But you can use this strategy in your personal life by listening to motivational, inspirational, educational podcasts. And if you're listening to them on a daily basis, eventually you're going to rewire your brain to search for the positives, to search for the knowledge. But it does take time. So you definitely it's not a one podcast is going to change your life, but listening to something positive and thought-provoking on a daily basis might actually change your life. The third thing is, whenever you think that your life is out of control and crazy and horrible and just miserable and why me, because we all get that way no matter where we are in life, even if we're successful in the eyes of others, we still have bad days. But one saying that always stood out to me that really brought me back to reality was actually in a book that I read from Lemony Snicket. He wrote, whenever times get tough, I always remembered things could be worse. You could be being mauled by a bear right now. And for some reason, that imagery of someone being mauled by a bear always stood out to me. So whenever someone was complaining about something that seemed very surface level or not big in the big picture of things, right? Like our health and safety are some of the most truly important things, but, bosses and coworkers and things do get the best of us and we find ourselves complaining. That visual of being mauled by a bear always made me chuckle, as cynical as that is, but more importantly brought me back to reality and kind of shifted things into perspective, that I do have my health, I'm not physically in pain. So that was always something that helped kind of just like, boom, bring me back to reality. So find your sign. So now we're going to dip over into left field a little bit, an area I feel less experienced talking about, but feel very a student in that department. So during my time in Spain, I was listening to a ton of inspirational podcasts that were very much left field woo-woo land, which I very much enjoyed. I spent a time when I wasn't connecting with a lot of other people because of the language barrier. I was very much alone with myself, and a quote that I have always remembered from Dr. Wayne Dyer was that if you love the person you're alone with, you'll never be lonely. And so that really was a time for me in my life to get to know who I was and really focus inward. But like I was saying, there was always this right side of the field that was very much happening in real time that kind of brought me out of that in the clouds moment. So I looked for sign from the universe to bring me back to that moment of being really present and being very grateful, and kind of just connect me to that source a little bit. And my sign that I found was the sun peeking back from the clouds. So that anytime I recognized when it went from darker to lighter and that sun would shine on my face, it would remind me to stop and take a moment and just relax, take it in, capture a memory, whatever it was, to be just a little bit more mindful and present. Some people, this is a very common experience with loved ones and birds or butterflies, looking for something in nature, always kind of having an eye out for something that might draw you back to just being a little bit more calm and, trying to find that source energy, even if sometimes it feels a little bit out of reach. So looking for the sun peeking out behind the clouds was always my trigger to know that there was something up there. Some wheels were spinning and that was calling me to stop, look, and listen because something cool was about to happen. So I had already talked about language being a barrier. But what that really taught me, aside from looking inward to, rely on myself and to communicate things with myself inside, was when I am communicating with other people, there's not just one way to translate a message to someone, especially in a different language. If I can't say one specific sentence, I have 5 different other ways that I can say the same thing. And that concept should apply to people even within your own language. So if someone's not understanding what you're trying to explain to them, try coming from that issue from a different angle. Whether it's, resolution standpoint or why did this start, just try exploring different ways that you can convey the same message. Whether it's a story, a picture, a writing. There's so many different ways you can convey a message to someone. Don't always assume that your message is the best and that it's going to be received to other people, because everyone processes information in a very different way, and your way is not always the best way. Sometimes for you to be the best communicator, you have to be able to take your message and adapt it in a number of different ways so that a variety of different people can observe your message and take it and run with it. compete against yourself, not others. Coming from someone who's very competitive, in sports and without board games, all that stuff, I'm super competitive. I love winning. I love that energy that competition brings. But I also recognize that me winning does not have to mean someone else loses. What I'm competing for is my own happiness. I'm not looking to win. I'm not looking to be the best, which was not always the case. In high school, I often had people try to fight me on a lot of things. They would see that fire rise when I would get confrontational, and they thought it was very entertaining. So whatever. So at one point I listened to Dr. Dyer again, maybe it was someone else, who said, you don't always have to be right, or choose happy, not right. Or if you have a choice between being right and being happy, choose happy. There it is. I've been notorious for messing up sayings my whole life. But that's fine. I have been in the past. So choose happy, right? So we don't have to be right. It's if you just swallow your words and give someone else the satisfaction of letting them think that they won, that does nothing to affect your day and the rest of your life. Let them have the satisfaction and just move on. Choose kindness. The world needs more people that are kind, not more people that are right. Because being right and wrong is very, very gray line anyways. And the last one, practice becoming more aware of your thoughts. If you recognize that you want to change some aspect about you, the best way that you can start to work on that is simply just being aware of what's currently going on. What are the current conversations that you're having in your head? Are you encouraging yourself? Probably not. If you're looking to create change in some way, shape, or form, you're probably not being very nice to yourself. You're probably not being your best friend. You're probably not being your biggest advocate. You're probably being pretty mean to yourself and telling yourself a lot of shitty things. And the first step in changing that is just being aware of it. Don't try to create that change right away. Strive for a perception. Strive for an awareness first so you can kind of see what's been going on and give yourself that wake-up call and understand that your brain is going to lie to you. Your thoughts is your brain's way of trying to reinforce a habit that it previously had. So anything you once said, let's take it back to the surface level to give you a really good example, because sometimes those intangibles can be hard to track. So when I was in high school, I didn't like asparagus. And so there had been, time and time again throughout my adult life that I had said, no, I don't like asparagus. When in reality, I have never even tried asparagus. I just assumed I didn't like it. Or I had said it at one point, and then I just reinforced that belief time and time again. When there was a point in my college career that I recognized that it literally came from asparagus, by the way, when I ate asparagus and I was like, oh my gosh, I actually like asparagus. I wonder how many other things that I say that are true about myself now that aren't actually true anymore. Because you have, your own feelings and opinions and they change over time. So I wonder how many of those values, ideas, and beliefs have changed over time. So you literally have to go back and kind of do a litmus test and see, is that true still? Maybe not. So whether it means tasting new foods again with an open mind of another thing, real quick, about trying new foods. I hate when people go to try new foods and they eat it so slowly and delicately and they look for the textures that are happening in their mouth. Well, let me tell you, if I blindfolded you and fed you pizza, for example, a food of many textures, and told you to think about what's going on in your mouth, you'd probably have a heart attack because there's a whole lot of different textures and temperatures going on in your mouth. Eat it as if it were delicious. So you take a bite and you just get to chewing and look for the good in it. Because you're going to know if it's not good, but go into it with the best intention. Don't go into it looking to hate something about it. Go into it with an open mind. And eat it with a good intention, like you're just eating the rest of your food. Don't eat it differently all of a sudden just because it's a new food, right? It's not going to kill you, hopefully. So that would be my biggest advice when it comes to creating change in your life is it first starts out with awareness. Check out what's going on so that you can start to work to change it. And don't be afraid to reconsider some of those beliefs that you've had or, statements you've said before for years. Especially things that have come from your parents, right? So your parents can have done nothing wrong in your life and you don't have to take all of their beliefs and identities. You can create your own. But there has to be a point in your life where you recognize that you're not just a result of your parents and what they did or didn't do. You are your own person, and you have the opportunity to create change in your life if you want it, but it requires consistent action. And I think the only discipline that actually is required for change is the discipline of your thoughts. You have to be consistently listening in, seeing what's currently playing, and then redirecting. Redirect, because just because you've read a book one time about how to change your thoughts doesn't mean all of a sudden your inner soundtrack is going to be completely different. That's not how it works. You have to be really consistent and slowly, over time, rewire the way your brain works. Rewire your reward system. Rewire your thought patterns. And over time, they'll slowly move. And it's always you get out of it what you put into it. So if you stop putting in the time and the effort into developing positive thought patterns, then it'll slowly drift back the other way. Because there's a lot of things about humans that are not wired for our best intent, because we live in a world that is very different from where our mammalian instincts came from, and the problems and obstacles that they encountered. So we're running off of an outdated operating system, but the good news is that through, putting in good brain food and, deliberate, consistent discipline of your brain and where you're sending your thoughts, you can work to change where your mindset is at. And I also like to try to track where your mindset is at. So every year on my birthday, I basically write an essay to myself, just talking about stories from that year. And year over year, you go back and read, and you notice that your voice starts to change. The things you talk about change, but you never notice those things happening unless you capture them somewhere. So that was something that I really did that really showed me where my mindset has been evolving year over year. But you wouldn't be able to know that unless you tracked it. So start journaling. Journal where your current voice is at. Is it negative? Does it suck? Do you wish you had someone else driving the boat? Write that down, because someday you'll look back and appreciate all of the hard work that you've done to rewire your brain, or to continue to put in good brain food and work on being the best version of yourself, and know that it's never going to be perfect and it's never going to be done. It's always a constant evolution. But the good news is that progression creates happiness. A human feeling like they are progressing is one of the most happy, fulfilled humans. So if we can always be progressing on our mindset, the thing that is with us all the time, then we're going to feel the most fulfilled and the most happy, and that's going to have a massive trickle effect into all the other areas of our life. So again, being able to kind of take that right field and left field and bridge the gap between the two, these are some of the things that helped me be able to live with my head in the clouds and my feet on the ground, and to be able to kind of cross that bridge whenever I needed to, and kind of float in and out of reality, so to speak. So hopefully these things were helpful. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you guys next time. Bye!